Fridays and Mondays always get me down.
Gather round, music lovers, because I've got a song for you. In a fresh decade, the 1970s, a blank canvas for what soft rock and pop music would become. The Carpenters showed that two soft, related voices can still soothingly pack a punch. With the talented composing of Richard Carpenter paired with the uniquely deep vocals of Karen, these two were a musical dream team. But sometimes the spotlight can hide deep emotional scars, and both these pioneers battle dark demons of their own. I'm your host, Nostalgic Nick, here to take a closer look at the Carpenters. We'll find out how Karen's pain influenced culture beyond music. If you enjoy our song, please give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a tour. But come on, let's hand over our ticket to ride and mosey on down memory lane. Upbringing. Richard Carpenter was born in 1946 and Karen 4 years later in 1950. The siblings were originally from New Haven, Connecticut, but grew up in a pretty international household since their dad was actually born in China, where his parents served as missionaries. The siblings spent their youth pretty differently, with Karen being the one roughhousing outside playing baseball and softball, while Richard was inside playing piano. As a youngster, Karen wasn't always into uplifting her big bro. Her first words were bye-bye and stop it. Yes, directed at him. But they were two sides of the same coin. The family eventually moved from New England to Los Angeles to help Richard get discovered. But the two of them could agree on some things. Their globetrotting dad bought the kids records and they loved listening to them together. Karen's appreciation for the arts led to dance lessons and joining her school band instead of gym class. Thanks to this, she was able to fall in love with percussion. And finally, the siblings cemented a mutual love of music and performed in school choir together. Conductor Frank Pooler saw their potential and encouraged Karen to nurture her vocal range. Pooler, who also had a hand in writing a festive tune you might recall, Merry Christmas, Darling.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to...
It's not just a last name. By the mid to late 60s, a career in music was pretty much guaranteed for these two. First came 1965's The Richard Carpenter Trio, made up of Richard, Karen, and Richard's friend Wes. And like any rising stars, they had their idols and they did their best to imitate them. For Karen, her favorite drummers were Ringo Starr and Joe Morello from the Dave Brubeck Quartet. She crushed the drums while Richard played piano and Wes covered tuba and bass. At the Hollywood Bowl Battle of the Bands, the trio gained some nice acclaim with their winning performances of Ice-T and The Girl from Ipanema. They recorded 3 songs for RCA before creating the band Spectrum. And then in 1969, brother and sister made the decisive move to sign with A&M Records, defining their music's trajectory for years to come. But first, they needed a name. So when they signed with A&M, they did so under the name Carpenters. Again, taking cues from what they liked, Jefferson Airplane and Buffalo Springfield. Heck, those two were cool in the Carpenters book, so that's how they'd style themselves. No ifs, ands, or these about it. The big break. With A&M, the Carpenters were ready to take on the music world. Things got off to a rocky start with their debut album called Offering. It's said the album's lackluster response had some A&M execs ready to part ways with them then, but they had some support from the top. Studio co-owner Herb Alpert, who has multiple gold and platinum albums himself. He stood his ground and kept them on. And thank God too, because that's how we got Superstar, Rainy Days and Mondays, We've Only Just Begun, and much, much more. We can thank Alpert in more ways than just trusting these artists.
They long to be close to you.
Who else loves the song Close to You? Well, originally, the songwriters Burt Bacharach and Hal David wanted Albert to record it himself. But Richard's keen composing eyes saw how complex the music was, and he and Karen were partly trusted with it. Here's the interesting thing. If you asked Karen, she'd consider herself a drummer who happened to sing. But when she played drums for Close to You, something didn't quite feel right. So Herb did some shuffling and tasked her with singing. And things finally fell into place and the song rocketed to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Karen's Inner Demons. Calling Karen Carpenter special would be an understatement. She wasn't just a talented singer, she was gifted and was a gift. She had a 3-octave contralto range, which put her on the lower range of typical female singers. She could transition from a middle road tone to the lowest notes possible with unmatched ease. This gave her the ability to tap into somber and airy tones not many other singers could. And Richard knew this when he composed the songs he played to her strengths. But the mind can play cruel tricks and keep us from seeing our own worth. Terribly, Karen faced this battle her whole life. Since she was a teen, she had body image issues and put herself on strict diets. A healthy weight can vary from bone density to muscle mass. But even when Karen maintained 120 pounds, she saw a concert photo of herself and thought she was overweight, becoming distraught. Her personal trainer put her on a new regimen that built muscle. But muscle weighs more than fat, and this led to Karen avoiding more foods. She would offer food from her plate to others at the table to slyly avoid eating. Anorexia and eating disorders in general were talked about on the sly too. It was one of those things that was all around us but not really addressed. And Karen used the same approach. She didn't say she was sick. She just told concerned fans she was feeling, quote, pooped. And when she brought it up to Richard, it was with vague terms like having a problem, a 91-pound problem. One helpful beacon was fellow singer Cherry Boone, who was one of the few public figures to talk about her own battle with anorexia. Karen wanted a quick fix and wasn't getting one. So what she did was get a fake ID to buy thyroid replacement meds. The abuse went up and her weight went down, to the point she was hospitalized. Her weight stayed pretty consistent after that, but all the abuse left her heart very damaged, and sadly, it never got better. Quaalude abuse. Stable success doesn't mean stable mental health. For all the perfect symphonies Richard could compose, inside he was a cacophony of distress. He suffered from anxiety, insomnia, depression, and panic attacks. A common treatment for these? Therapy and consulting with a physician? No, not at all. It was Quaaludes, which became so abused in the US music scene they were nicknamed disco biscuits. It's a sedative and hypnotic drug that could give a high lasting 6 hours, getting those muscles nice and relaxed and wiping memories clean. Feeling exhausted from touring in 1971, Richard got a prescription for the drug and kept upping the dose. He was high off Quaaludes when he fell down a flight of stairs in 1979. Enough of a wake-up call for him to seek help. The first 3 weeks of treatment he called, quote, hell on earth. But he kept going and took a year off work to properly recover. Trouble in Paradise.
Can't we stop hurting each other?
The Carpenters kept their personal struggles mostly hidden, so anytime issues surfaced, fans wondered if this meant the end. Richard stopped touring in 1978, just before his big collapse. And there was a stint where Karen worked solo, and the music had a different feel. But conflict inside the walls traces back to their childhood, when Richard the music prodigy got all the love from their parents. Being overshadowed cuts deep, but Karen always wanted a family of her own. However, her love life wasn't very stable. She dated Mark Harmon, Tony Danza, and Steve Martin, just to name a few. And after 2 months of dating Tom Burris, they got married. A wedding Karen nearly called off because of his vasectomy, but her mother would not let her because everything was paid for. But things got so much worse when Burris drained thousands from Karen and called her a, quote, bag of bones, even taunting her about never having kids. I mean, what a jerk. 14 months later, they split. A family friend called the fallout, quote, absolutely the worst thing that could have ever happened to her. Legacy. The Carpenters continued into the 1980s until the pair was separated in the worst way. The 1970s Queen of Christmas had just performed Christmas carols for friends and schoolchildren. The last thing her good friend Dionne Warwick heard was that she had, quote, a lot of living left to do. But then on February 4th, 1983, Karen collapsed. Her heart beat just once every 10 seconds, and she passed away that morning at just 32 years old. Later that year, the Carpenters won a Hollywood Walk of Fame star, but it was terribly bittersweet for Richard, who called his sister's loss the worst event of his life. A choir sang "We've Only Just Begun" in her honor. Today, Richard continues alone with music and oversaw the release of the Carpenters' last studio album. He's also released his own solo work, and got Karen's solo work posthumously completed as well. In their 14-year run, the Carpenters cemented the soft rock genre, and their music still sells today as well as the best, beaten only by the Beatles and Mariah Carey. Karen's untimely death also brought eating disorders out of the shadows for some crucial, life-saving discussions. And in this way, Karen wasn't just a drummer who could sing, she was a drummer who saved lives. The Carpenters are not together as we know, but their philanthropy endures today through the Carpenter Family Foundation that Richard runs with his wife Mary, as well as the Richard and Karen Carpenter Performing Arts Center. Sadly, we lost a lot of historic material, including the Carpenters' Graceland, their family home, and other material in the 2008 Universal fire. But lucky for us, their music will never fade, and people will be listening to the unmatchable harmonies of Karen and Richard Carpenter for years to come. So now it's your turn. What was your favorite song of theirs? Is Karen's singing voice the best female vocals of all time? Tell me all your Carpenters memories in the comments below. We read them all. And if you enjoyed the beat, smash that thumbs up icon to show support. And subscribe to the channel so you never miss a memory. But from all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you for watching.